You guys can put whatever label you want on me. I don't really give a shit.
You guys can call me whatever you want because I honestly don't care. But when wrestling legends like Brock Lesnar sound this angry as they address WWE, you know something serious is going on. For years they complained quietly, but now they're speaking openly, and what they're exposing has WWE scrambling for damage control, so let's get right into it. When the legends turn into critics, things change fast, because professional wrestling has always been a world where generations clash and different ideas of what makes great wrestling collide. But what's happening in 2025 is something new and something every WWE fan needs to pay attention to, as the same legends who built WWE into a global powerhouse are now speaking with voices too loud to ignore. And what they're saying should worry anyone who loves this business. These are not bitter has-beens or forgotten wrestlers begging for attention. These are Bret the Hitman Hart, Ric Flair, Jim Cornette and Vince Russo, names tied forever to wrestling's greatest eras, the men who created the blueprint, filled arenas and made wrestling matter, and now they are warning that modern WWE has lost something important, something that made wrestling special in the first place. So let's start with Bret Hart, because when the excellence of execution talks, the wrestling world listens, and this is a man trained in one of the toughest and most real wrestling environments ever created, the Hart Dungeon, where his father Stu Hart shaped some of the greatest technical wrestlers in history. Bret didn't learn wrestling as entertainment first and combat second. He learned it the other way around, mastering holds, counters, and the art of making everything look real and dangerous while still protecting his opponent, and his matches were never just collections of high spots and near falls. They were stories told through pain and perseverance where every move built on the last one, and the psychology was so sharp that you could follow the whole narrative just by watching the action. And when Bret sits down with MMA journalist Ariel Helwani in April 2025 and says modern wrestling has turned into actors pretending to be wrestlers, it isn't just an old man complaining, it's a harsh warning from someone who understands wrestling on a deep level. Hart pointed at AEW's roster directly but made it clear that WWE suffers from the same problem, saying today's wrestlers lack real mat skills, proper wrestling psychology, and the ability to tell stories through holds and selling instead of relying on flips and obviously choreographed moves. He doubled down in August 2025 with PW Mania, explaining how modern matches ignore psychology, that vital art of building drama through logical progression, making fans believe what they're seeing matters and selling moves so well that people suspend their disbelief even when they already know the finish. Taz supported Hart's view in August 2025, expressing frustration with wrestlers putting their bodies through real pain with no story payoff and calling it a shortcut that ruins long-term storytelling. For Hart, modern WWE's focus on athletic stunts, those high spots from talents like Ricochet and those celebrity moments with Logan Paul doing backflips weakens the standard of excellence he stood for his whole career. Now let's move to Ric Flair, because the Nature Boy brings a different angle to the same core issue, and if Bret Hart is wrestling's technical thinker, then Ric Flair is its charismatic showman, the man whose legendary career was shaped by spontaneity, by reading the crowd, calling matches on the fly and believing that wrestling should feel alive and unpredictable instead of rehearsed and controlled. In January 2025, Flair told Ringside News that practicing matches is the only thing in the business he can't stand anymore because he believes it destroys the improvisational magic that made his promos and wild brawls legendary, proudly declaring that he never practiced and meaning it as the highest praise for his generation's style. A time when wrestlers didn't choreograph every spot or rehearse every sequence but instead learned a vocabulary of moves, understood crowd psychology, and created their matches in the moment by calling spots on the fly and adjusting based on what the audience responded to. That approach produced some of wrestling's most unforgettable moments because they couldn't be duplicated, and when Flair and Ricky Steamboat had their iconic series in 1989, not a single match was exactly the same even though the story structure was similar. And when Flair clashed with Dusty Rhodes in those brutal, bloody fights that felt genuinely dangerous, the chaos felt real because none of it was mapped out step by step. Flair's frustration hit a breaking point in September 2025 when he dismissed comparisons between himself and modern stars like Gunther, arguing that today's standards have dropped to an embarrassing level. And then there's Vince Russo, the Attitude Era mastermind who helped turn WWE into a cultural force in the late 1990s as head writer, shaping Stone Cold Steve Austin's rebellious character, the edgy storylines that pushed limits, and the worked shoot promos that blurred the line between fiction and reality. Now, seeing what WWE has turned into, Russo told the Times of India in May 2025 that Triple H's creative direction feels stale, criticizing choices like Roman Reigns' long bloodline storyline for lacking the shocking twists and unpredictable moments that defined his era, and he doubled down in an October 2025 Facebook post calling modern pro wrestling safe, censored, repetitive, boring, and predictable, while praising edgier independent promotions like Juggalo Championship Wrestling where he's currently booking. Russo argues that WWE's shift from TV-14 to PG in 2008 wasn't just a rating change but a full philosophical shift that changed what wrestling could be, because the Attitude Era wasn't edgy just for shock value, it was edgy because it reflected the real attitudes and interests of its audience. Fans wanted to see anti-authority rebels like Stone Cold flip off their bosses because many people felt the same frustration in their own lives, and they wanted risky storylines and adult-oriented content because wrestling was finally treating viewers like adults instead of children. In Russo's view, modern WWE has traded rebellion for respectability and authenticity for advertiser-friendly content that offends no one and excites no one, and the irony he highlights is that WWE is more financially successful than ever with the TKO merger, the Netflix deal, and the Saudi contracts bringing in billions. Yet he insists that financial success doesn't equal creative success or cultural relevance. The Attitude Era was a cultural event that went beyond wrestling, being referenced in mainstream entertainment, producing catchphrases everyone knew, and turning its stars into household names, while modern WWE may have more platforms and more revenue streams but lacks that same cultural impact or ability to create moments that matter beyond wrestling fans. From all these voices, a clear picture forms. Wrestling legends believe WWE has traded authenticity for polish, spontaneity for choreography, character-driven storytelling for athletic showcases, and emotional depth for safe corporate content, and these aren't bitter complaints but deep critiques of WWE's transformation under TKO and Triple H. They believe something important has been lost, something that made wrestling truly special, and they're not sure it can be brought back. And now even the fans are furious, because while the legends give one point of view, the fans provide another voice that must be heard, since they're the ones buying tickets, subscribing to streaming services, purchasing merchandise, and dedicating hours every week to WWE programming, and in 2025 those fans are louder than ever, saying things that should worry anyone who cares about the company's long-term future. This isn't just scattered complaining on random message boards or trolls trying to get attention, it's a widespread and organized wave of criticism stretching across Reddit forums, Facebook groups, YouTube comments, and every major social media platform, and the WWE universe is speaking with a level of consistency that perfectly matches what the legends have been warning about. The frustration goes far beyond online ranting, and the viewership numbers alone tell a worrying story, with SmackDown suffering a shocking 39% drop in January 2025, a decline so huge it can't be brushed off as routine fluctuations or seasonal dips. Attendance at live events is slipping too, as fans grow hesitant to pay inflated ticket prices for shows that feel repetitive and predictable, and maybe the most revealing sign of all is how fan engagement has changed, with social media discussions shifting from excitement to constant criticism, where threads about what's wrong with WWE get far more attention than posts celebrating anything the company does right. At the core of this frustration is WWE's creative direction, which fans overwhelmingly label as lazy and non-committal, favoring quick shock moments made for social media over long-term stories that build real emotional investment. A July 2025 op-ed from Real Rap Entertainment captured this perfectly by pointing out how fans cheer heels and boo faces not because the wrestlers are failing but because the booking is so inconsistent that character alignment has stopped meaning anything, especially when a wrestler turns heel on Monday and then acts like a babyface by Friday, when alliances change without logic, and when wins and losses seem to have no lasting consequences, causing the audience to stop caring because nothing feels important or leads to payoffs. A Bleacher Report analysis described WWE's 2025 product as feeling mid, with storylines constantly resetting to factory settings so that no matter what happens, everything eventually returns to the same predictable patterns. This creates a heavy sense of futility where nothing ever truly changes or grows, and watching starts to feel empty because you know any interesting development will eventually get reversed so everything can return to the same safe status quo. Nothing shows how much WWE has changed more clearly than the level of commercialization that has turned shows into long advertisements occasionally interrupted by wrestling, and Maven's statement about WWE becoming one big gigantic ad hit fans so hard because it perfectly expressed the feeling they've had for years but couldn't say out loud. The sense that they're being sold to instead of entertained and that every segment exists mainly to push sponsors rather than advance stories or highlight talent. This commercialization appears in countless suffocating ways, from obvious sponsorships like Slim Jim tables being smashed, Cash App briefcases turning money in the bank into a brand tie-in, and championship matches introduced as being brought to you by whatever sponsor paid the most. But the issue goes far deeper than logos and props because advertising demands have warped WWE's pacing and structure in ways that ruin the viewing experience. A September 2025 Ringside News report captured the outrage from fans who paid for Netflix's ad-free tier yet still had to sit through commercials during WWE broadcasts, leaving them feeling tricked and disrespected, and a 411 Mania report highlighted similar backlash after the September 8 Raw aired commercials, even for viewers who paid premium prices specifically to avoid them. These commercial pressures don't just disrupt the show with breaks, they also affect match pacing, with fans complaining that matches feel too long, too choreographed, and too controlled, all while ticket prices have shot up by 250% even as the live experience itself has gotten worse. WWE's current roster structure has also created what fans call a top-heavy problem, where a small group of established stars receive nearly all the TV time, storyline focus, and promotional push, while talented mid-card wrestlers are left with nothing meaningful to do. An OctoberSI.com piece about Samantha Irvin's non-compete clause expanded into larger discussions about restrictive contracts that trap wrestlers in place even when WWE clearly has no real plans for them, and a Daily DT article questioning whether WWE is burying LA Knight pointed out how success for mid-card talents is always kept just out of reach, with wrestlers being built up just enough to keep fans hopeful but never pushed far enough to become true main event stars. In August, a Sportster report about Karrion Kross revealed something especially alarming, with claims that WWE management told Kross to ignore the loud fan reactions and follow their planned direction no matter what the audience wanted, and if that's true, it represents a complete breakdown of how wrestling is supposed to function, since the whole point of predetermined outcomes is to let bookers react to the crowd and give people what they're demanding. WWE's women's division is one of the most frustrating contradictions in modern wrestling, filled with incredible talent capable of stealing any show yet constantly held back by booking that ranges from uninspired to outright damaging, and while a Reddit post praised the women for running the Fed by making up 32% of all matches, that same post criticized the uneven storytelling that prevents their strong performances from becoming long-term compelling narratives. Even with real bright spots, roster cuts have weakened the division's depth, and fans have repeatedly blasted Triple H's booking of the women's tag team titles. WWE's pay-per-view structure has also become a major source of fan anger, with shows feeling increasingly formulaic, predictable, and missing the special energy that once made big events must-watch television, and WrestlePalooza 2025 drew especially harsh disappointment, with one Facebook post calling it probably the worst WWE PLE of 2025 and criticizing how a heavily promoted, heavily hyped event ended up failing to deliver on almost everything it promised. Another report about SummerSlam 2025 described major streaming issues that stopped fans from watching one of WWE's biggest shows, problems that felt especially outrageous because people had paid premium prices specifically for the ability to stream these events without interruptions. When you put all these complaints together, a much bigger and more troubling picture forms, showing a fan base that feels ignored, disrespected, and pushed aside by a company that seems more focused on satisfying corporate partners and chasing mainstream approval than delivering the kind of wrestling product that made fans fall in love with WWE in the first place. Kurt Angle defending Triple H during the backlash proves that not everyone agrees with the criticism, but the sheer volume and consistency of complaints point to deeper issues than just internet negativity. A frustrated Reddit user argued that the downfall from WWE 2024 to 2025 needs to be studied, suggesting something significant changed during that period that sent the product in a sharply negative direction, and a July thread captured the heartbreak many fans feel with the line "My passion for WWE is slowly going away again," a feeling repeated by countless longtime viewers who have stayed loyal through many rough eras but now feel their patience being pushed past its limits. The legends are speaking out, the fans are revolting, and WWE is standing at a crossroads where they must choose whether to listen and adjust or keep prioritizing corporate metrics while risking the loss of the hardcore audience that has supported wrestling through every boom and every bust. And while the legends criticize and the fans complain about WWE's current direction, there's another important layer to all this frustration: the deep, powerful nostalgia for what many still see as professional wrestling's golden age. Austin's middle finger to authority became the defining image of a generation because it captured something real in energy, a rebellion, a rawness that fans instinctively recognized as authentic. It wasn't just entertainment. It was attitude woven directly into the DNA of the product. The ruthless aggression era followed with a different kind of intensity. Once the shock factor of the Attitude Era faded and WWE stood alone after buying WCW, the company leaned into pure competitive storytelling. Wrestlers like John Cena, Brock Lesnar, Kurt Angle, Eddie Guerrero, Batista, Randy Orton, and Edge weren't characters built on chaos, they were crafted on hunger. They were athletes trying to fill the biggest shoes wrestling had ever seen, and they pushed themselves to new heights to prove they belonged. Matches were more technical. Promos were sharper and more character-driven. Storylines were grounded in personal rivalries rather than shock value. It was an era defined by heart, work ethic, and proving yourself worthy of carrying the torch. What ties both eras together, what fans long for, are the same core elements: authenticity, unpredictability, and characters who made you feel something every time they walked down the ramp. And that's where the nostalgia hits hardest. Today's wrestling is cleaner, safer, more corporate, more polished. Sometimes too polished. WWE may be bigger than ever financially, but the soul of the product, the gritty fire that made fans fall in love, is what many believe has dimmed. Nostalgia becomes a mirror reflecting everything modern WWE is missing: genuine risk, organic storytelling, characters who evolve naturally instead of being micromanaged for brand protection, and moments that feel shocking because they break the rules, not reinforce them. The modern landscape is different. There's no Monday Night War forcing innovation. Billion-dollar deals prioritize safety and consistency. The company is no longer fighting for survival, it's fighting to maintain a corporate empire. The real question wrestling faces now is simple but incredibly difficult. Can WWE recapture the kind of magic that was born from chaos, rebellion, and creative desperation? While operating in a world where chaos is controlled, rebellion is moderated, and creativity must be brand safe? That's the crossroads fans feel today. They're not just frustrated with booking decisions or corporate priorities, they're mourning a feeling. A feeling of danger. A feeling of spontaneity. A feeling of being part of something wild, imperfect, and unforgettable. A feeling modern wrestling can't quite replicate, at least not yet. DX's invasions of WCW broadcasts and their constant juvenile antics made them the coolest act in wrestling, while The Rock's electrifying promos blending humor, arrogance, and charisma created moments that went beyond wrestling and became part of popular culture. And the good news is that unpredictability and edge don't always need profanity or explicit content. They need bold creativity and the courage to genuinely surprise the audience. Triple H could, in theory, bring more real shock into WWE programming by having unexpected title changes on weekly television instead of saving every big moment for pay-per-views, so that every episode of Raw or SmackDown could suddenly feel important rather than filler between major events. Fans respond to approaches that make weekly shows meaningful, like regular big matches with real storyline consequences, and bringing back stipulation-based matches like Hell in a Cell for specific events so they feel truly special. The key is crafting scenarios where outcomes are uncertain and stakes actually matter, making fans feel like watching is essential rather than optional. While full replication of the Attitude Era is limited by sponsors and advertisers who set strict content rules, there is plenty of room between today's sanitized programming and the extremes of the Attitude Era for WWE to operate, a middle ground that respects modern standards while recapturing some of that dangerous, unpredictable energy. Both the Attitude Era and Ruthless Aggression thrived on characters who were so vivid, so fully realized, and larger than life that they became cultural icons. And these weren't just good wrestlers with cool moves, they were personalities who left a lasting mark on entertainment itself. They were fully developed characters with distinct personalities, motivations, catchphrases, and presentation. From Mankind's masochistic devotion to violence, living in boiler rooms while wearing his unsettling mask, to Kane's silent, monstrous presence as The Undertaker's supposedly burned brother, to Val Venis, whose over-the-top adult film gimmick became legendary. Nostalgia hits hardest for iconic stables like D-Generation X, The Corporation, The Nation of Domination, and Evolution, which wove mid-card wrestlers into epic storylines where everyone had a role and every role mattered to the larger narrative, unlike modern wrestling where solo performers often have isolated matches with little connective tissue. These stables created intertwined storylines where tag matches, six-man tags, and faction wars kept multiple wrestlers relevant and gave each segment weight, making everything feel important. Fans have admitted drifting away after Hulkamania but falling completely in love during the Attitude Era because of these hated or adored personalities, while modern WWE, with what fans call generic jocks who could be playing any sport and just happen to be wrestlers, lacks that emotional intensity and distinctive character. This is one of the areas where WWE could improve immediately because creating unique characters doesn't require edgy content or changes to corporate structure, it requires creative commitment and the freedom to let wrestlers develop personalities of their own. NXT is full of potential that could be unlocked with proper main roster development, and reviving the lost art of managers for athletes who excel in the ring but lack microphone charisma could help form cross-brand stables that recreate the magic of Evolution or the Corporation. Combining Braun Breaker's raw athleticism with Jacob Fatu's intimidating presence, adding a charismatic spokesperson and a technical wizard, instantly creates a faction where every member contributes something unique yet functions as a cohesive unit. Proving the blueprint for success already exists from past eras. WWE simply needs the creative courage to build and protect new factions instead of putting together random pairings that fall apart after a few weeks, because the old days excelled at long-term storytelling that created deep emotional investment through narratives carefully crafted over months or even years. Stone Cold's 3-year war against Mr. McMahon and corporate authority gave every match and segment meaning within a bigger story. Edge and Lita's torrid, controversial relationship spilled into multiple feuds, generating genuine heat, and Batista's slow realization that evolution was holding him back, leading to his eventual betrayal of Triple H, was nearly a year in the making. A May 2025 analysis from Copyflight highlighted lessons from wrestling's greatest eras, emphasizing comeback stories filled with adversity and pointing to feuds like Undertaker vs. Kane as timeless redemption arcs fans still watch decades later. An E-Wrestling News editorial blamed recent viewership drops on half-finished storylines that destroy audience investment, when WWE teases compelling plots only to abandon them without explanation or rush them without proper build-up, training fans to stop caring about setup and foreshadowing. This may be where modern WWE has the clearest path to improvement, because Triple H's experience as an NXT booker proved he can craft long-term, engaging stories when given creative freedom. Genuine multi-event booking could succeed if WWE commits to seeing stories through instead of shifting direction based on weekly reactions, and the focus should be on feuds with real personal stakes and emotional depth rather than generic, I want your title rivalries or dangerous stunts like blood, chair shots, and Hell in a Cell falls that look like they might genuinely kill someone. The physicality of the Attitude Era and ruthless aggression periods created a sense of real danger that made wrestling feel unpredictable and intense, and Mick Foley's legendary matches with tables, ladders, and chairs show how this could be adapted today, using gimmicked furniture and padding to make stunts look devastating while actually keeping performers safer. The Sportster has advocated for tag team wrestling with serious brawling elements that echo the Hardy Boys' death-defying TLC classics, proving that with proper preparation and modern safety equipment, WWE could present matches that feel brutally physical without risking serious injury. The Attitude Era wasn't just a wrestling success, it was a cultural phenomenon that crossed into mainstream conversation, with Austin 316 shirts outselling band merchandise and DX's invasion angles making national headlines. Today, WWE has even greater potential because of distribution platforms and media reach that didn't exist then, allowing for viral clips, strategic crossovers, and social media-friendly segments designed to be shared and discussed, while also understanding that modern audiences often consume short clips rather than full 3-hour shows. Most analysts agree that fully recreating the Attitude Era is impossible not because of lack of talent or understanding, but because the unique conditions that created it, like the Monday Night Wars and a pre-social media environment that allowed mystery and kayfabe, no longer exist. That said, WWE can still learn from those principles, and a January 2025 YouTube video urged the company to build new stars instead of relying on legends, echoing calls to invest in full-timers rather than nostalgia acts. The path forward lies in blending eras, taking the unpredictability and character depth from the Attitude Era, the storytelling strength from ruthless aggression, and combining them with modern athleticism and production values to create something fresh rather than just trying to relive the past, because nostalgia alone sells but isn't enough to sustain engagement in 2025. Attitude Era DLC packs for WWE video games sold like wildfire. Legends returning for one-night appearances generate instant rating spikes, and throwback merchandise consistently moves units, but relying too much on nostalgia risks stunting growth and preventing WWE from building new stars and creating the moments that will become tomorrow's classics. Bleacher Report warned that excessive nostalgia can overshadow the hard work of modern wrestlers, producing excellent matches and memorable moments that still get compared to the past. The healthiest approach treats nostalgia as a bridge rather than a destination, using echoes of the Attitude Era's rebellious spirit to spark interest while delivering modern wrestling that stands on its own, blending Stone Cold's anti-authority ethos with Cody Rhodes' earnest heroism to create a post-Attitude hybrid that honors the past while evolving for today's audiences. WWE's challenge in 2025 and beyond is to respect its remarkable history without being trapped by it. Fans may return initially for reminders of what they loved, but they will only stay if WWE evolves and gives them new reasons to invest emotionally. The legends are right that something was lost when wrestling shifted from a rebellious art form to a corporate product, and fans are right that booking choices and over-commercialization alienate the core audience. But the solution isn't simply recreating 1998, it's learning what made that era special and translating those principles into compelling modern wrestling that respects today's realities while recapturing the passion, unpredictability, and emotional resonance that made people fall in love with wrestling. The good old days were undeniably special, but they can't be the whole future without becoming a tombstone marking where the industry stopped growing. WWE must evolve, but that evolution should restore the soul that's been sanitized away, the rebellious edge, the distinctive characters, the long-term storytelling, the sense of danger and unpredictability, and the cultural relevance that made wrestling matter. That is the real challenge facing Triple H and WWE, not to go backward, but to move forward while carrying the best parts of the past along for the journey.